If you're suffering from diabetes or you're in the pre-diabetic stage, choosing what to eat can be tricky, especially when it comes to carbohydrates. After all, carbs are the enemy, right? Well, not really. Not all carbs are created equal. The trick is to choose the ones that are better for you. Before we continue, do consider subscribing to us, as every video you watch will equip you with the knowledge to overcome type 2 diabetes. Now let's dive in. At the end of the day, carbs provide you with energy for your daily activities. Your cells need glucose to function. Carbohydrates are always the body's preferred source of fuel for energy. Even if you're on a ketogenic diet, your body has to convert all the fat you eat into glucose before they can be used. But that aside, many of our favorite foods are carb-based. Pizza, anyone? Personally, I don't think I can ever give up carbs completely. I went on a no-carb phase, eating only protein, fats, and vegetables. Sure didn't last long. When I completely cut out carbs, I didn't feel as good. I was always feeling hungry and unsatisfied throughout the day, constantly thinking about my next meal. Eventually, I caved in, and I went on a binging spree, shoving biscuit after biscuit into my face. Whatever progress I made by cutting out carbs was immediately undone by that moment. In hindsight, it was unavoidable. A no-carb diet was not sustainable for me. So what's the alternative? Well, as I hinted earlier, you need to eat the right carbs and avoid the bad ones, or at least change the way you eat the bad ones. So what are the good carbs? If you're diabetic or in the early stages, you should be acquainted with the term glycemic load. Basically, it's a measure of how fast and how much certain food causes your blood sugar to rise after you eat it. Rather than obsessing over the specific numbers, I like to keep things simple. Personally, I just keep a mental checklist dividing carbs into two categories. Those with a high glycemic load, those with a lower glycemic load. Those in the high glycemic load category are things like all liquid carbs, soft drinks, fruit juices, alcohol, sweetened coffee or tea. Refined carbs like white bread, white rice, noodles, mashed potatoes, and French fries. All fruit, but especially the dry or dried fruit, bananas, dates, dried raisins, peaches, apricots, mangoes. One main giveaway here is that these carbohydrates are all simple and refined, meaning they've been stripped off of their natural fibers, making them incredibly easy to digest. The worst offenders are the liquid carbs like your sweetened beverages. They pretty much require no digestion at all and enter your bloodstream very rapidly. They're like gasoline to a fire, burning up instantly and quickly, leaving you with a sugar high and crash. To keep your insulin levels in check, you'll want to consume the lower glycemic carbs that burn like firewood logs, slowly and steadily, keeping your sugar levels fairly balanced. Dried fruit is another culprit. Most might think that snacking on fruit is healthy, but if you're struggling with blood sugar issues, eating dried fruit can trigger your high blood sugar symptoms. If you take a look at some established health websites, some even list fruit and dry fruits like bananas in the medium glycemic range. The thing is, when fruit is eaten, it digests rapidly, producing the same high blood sugar symptoms. You could just as easily go into a food coma from eating a couple of oranges as you would eating a piece of plain toast. Some might disagree, saying that the fructose, the natural sugar found in fruits, does not require insulin to digest. But based on my own and others' experience, we feel much better when we stop eating fruit completely or when it is kept to small amounts. At the end of the day, natural sugar is still sugar and will cause blood sugar spikes when eaten, especially when you're already insulin resistant. My advice? If you're still struggling with diabetic symptoms and you find that fruit gives you an energy crash, avoid it completely or keep it to a minimum. You can get sufficient vitamins and minerals from vegetables. Potatoes do not count, or from vegetable supplements like a greens powder. So what are the carbs in the lower glycemic range? They're the carbs that have gone through less processing, carbs like oatmeal, quinoa, couscous, beans, whole grain bread, and pasta. These carbs generally have their soluble fibers still intact, helping to slow down the process of digestion, giving you a slower and gradual release of sugar. As an added benefit, they have a higher protein content in them too, further contributing to their lower glycemic load. As much as possible, try to switch out the higher glycemic carbs for the lower ones. But sometimes it's not possible. You might be eating out, or maybe you just happen to run out of oats at home. Don't worry. Even if you only have the higher glycemic options available, you can still have them. Just be sure to never eat them alone. Always consume them with a protein and a fat source to reduce the overall glycemic load. I'd recommend softening the impact of a high glycemic carb even further by having the fat and protein first, before consuming the carbs. This lays a solid foundation that will slow down the digestion of the carbs that comes after. If the carbs are eaten first, they'll rush right in through your bloodstream. On a final note, it's worth remembering that whether a carb is high or low glycemic, it's never a good idea to overeat it. Consuming too many calories of anything will cause unwanted weight gain and tax your digestive system. So what do you think, folks? What are some of your go-to carbs for keeping your insulin levels in check? Comment down below. Thanks for watching, and see you next time!